Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this super sweltering day in summer in London. There goes the washing machine on my end.
I
Um,
cannot hear it.
I know. I am joined by my friend Gianfranco, who lives nearby. Hi,
Hello. Hi.
how's it going?
When it's hot, I've adopted the strategy of moving as little as possible. Kind of, I'll reply with my eyes in many cases, and that's all you get
Okay.
for an answer.
I think that's a great use of energy. So, you're working on a book on, would you want to tell us a little bit about that before we kick off? Or is that,
Will it jinx it?
I don't know.
Actually, this week I sent the sample chapter to my agent. I've been working on the proposal on the content and the research for almost 2 years now. And now I'm in the phase of starting to pitch it to publishers. So it's a book about craftsmanship, Japanese craftsmanship in particular, and especially about what we, and by we I mean people, especially knowledge workers or people that are not craftsmen, can learn from it to improve how we live and world and work. Not as trying not to fetishize the thing and trying not to sin of Orientalism, but to explore a few dimensions that I think were uh, compulsory in the past because of how the world was, pre-digital and whatnot. But I think that today we're discovering that part of, what can help us as individuals, as societies, and even our relationship with the environment in the world has kind of a few things to learn from those past behaviors. And now it could be a decision. While in the past, it was a bit of a constraint in many cases.
And I think this relates to specifically also to the first object that you bring us today.
Yes, you can say I'm biased, but hey, sue me. So the first object is a tea caddy. It's a tea caddy made in Kyoto in Japan by Taikado. It's a sixth generation tea caddy company which started making modern tea caddies in the 1800s. It's an object. I mean, first of all, I mean it's a tea caddy. It has kind of double walls and stuff to keep tea fresh. It kind of is. It's built just a you see that slight movement and softness and air. It's actually what inspired Apple to design the boxes for the iPhones. But the reason why I'm showing this object made by a craftsman and whatnot is that when I first encountered them 7 or 8 years ago, I met Takahiro Yagi, the current head of the company, and he was showing a few different of these tea caddies. They were the new ones, and this has 4 or 5 years old, but also some of the first ones they did. So you could see tea caddies that were 30, 40, and even 100 years old. And these things were more beautiful the older they were. And this was not by mistake, but by design. So these are objects that are made to age well. And that was something that made me reflect a lot on the work I was doing back then, or even these days, to figure out, is anything of the things I do, first of all, going to be around in a couple of years, and then is it going to be more beautiful? Whatever, it's not just about aesthetic beauty, but is it going to be more beautiful with time? And the answer was no in many cases. And while not everything needs to last, some things are made for the moment and for the current zeitgeist. It did made me question a lot of the energy I was spending into certain activities because I don't have dreams of necessarily transcending my age and time. But it's a pity if everything you contributed to the world disappears or made no difference or cannot last. So that's what this object reminds me, and I have a couple of these. Um, the building for the long term, where things become better the more you use them. And also, the corollary is that this thing is also made to be repaired. So you can take it back to them. And, with time, maybe because, you've been pressing or banging it, against a table or something, the shape might be slightly deformed. They will fix it and repair it for you, and it'll feel just as new.
And
yeah.
this idea of repairability kind of connects to your next object also in some way.
Yes.
I
My
think that's actually the thread through some of what you're going to talk about for the next two objects. So
Actually, the three of them have the thread of repairability, of modularity, but also that they are made to last for long and become better with time. Sometimes it's just aesthetic, sometimes it's also as a function of the object. So the second object is a camera. This is an old Hasselblad manual camera. It's a 503CX. I bought it used when I was living in Japan 12 or so years ago, but actually it's from 1989, and the company is Swedish. So the relation to Japan is kind of indirect. And this camera, I still use it. I still use it quite a lot. One of the things I love is the design is very simple. A similar camera was used to take the photos on the moon, by the manned missions to the moon. It's made so that each piece can be either replaced or fixed or upgraded by just kind of removing it. I'm not going to take the lens because I don't want any dirt to go in. I still have some film in. And I also own digital cameras, and I do quite a lot of photography. But what's frustrating with my digital cameras is that even though the bodies are made of magnesium alloy and are weather sealed and could last a lot of time, I have a 5-year-old digital Fuji camera, which the sensor has been becoming obsolete, and the batteries actually the batteries might be out of production in a couple of years, because now they're going to higher capacity batteries, which means that first of all, that even if the body lasts forever, the camera will be kind of useless or obsolete. But also from a retail value point of view, today it retails, if I want to sell that body, for probably around 10%, maybe 20 if I'm lucky, of what I bought it 5 years ago. Well, this one, it was not a cheap camera. It was cheaper than my digital camera. I could sell it for the same or more money than what I paid for, 12 years ago. So it not only brings me a lot of pleasure as an object and for photography, but photography hasn't improved unless we get into computational photography, but that's another story.
I'm gonna stop you there to kind of go through your third, because I want to come back to some of what you've talked about. So what's your third object for us today?
So my third object, and we were deliberating before we started recording because I have a few different ones. The third one is a watch. It's an Omega Constellation that was from my father. My mother gave it to him as a present in 1974. My father passed away many years ago. And actually, it went lost for many years. It suffered a lot of physical abuse because it was lost in a box and travels and stuff. It ended up being that my brother had it, and he has moved from Argentina to Mexico to Spain and stuff. So the watch went through a lot of stuff. And for me, it's I was definitely looking into things that helped me reduce the screen time. So having a watch, and not using the phone was something I was looking forward to. But when I take it for repairs, I went to the official shop in the high street here in London, at Omega. They quoted a lot of repairs. There were issues with the mechanism, and this doesn't require a battery. It's just kind of your body movement. The main case had suffered damage, so it's no longer waterproof or weatherproof, and there were a few other issues. And when I went through the bill of repairs, of proposed repairs, I mean, they were not cheap. They were not crazy expensive, but they were not cheap. But the problem is that they proposed to almost replace the whole watch. And I was telling them, yeah, but the thing is, I want to fix this because this was my dad's watch and I would like to wear it. I don't want to replace everything because otherwise it wouldn't be my dad's watch. At that point, I can buy a new watch. It's the point was not to buy a new watch. Even the face, so the face of the watch, it has a beautiful kind of constellation, the night sky. It used to have a radioactive material to make it, shine in the dark and whatnot. And it's a bit chipped, it's what, 40 something, 45 or more years old, 46 years old. and they were proposing even to make repairs, to have an artisan, because they don't have that piece, in stock anymore, to have an artisan repaint it. They're saying, no, no, no. Actually, I want to see those marks, because that shows the life of the watch. This was my dad's watch. So I don't want a good as new, especially aesthetically object. I just want it to be functional again, to last forever. Not needing a battery means that I just need to shake it a bit and it's going to work. And after 45 minutes of discussion at the shop, and they were treating me, nicely, they offered me tea. They had white gloves, actually. They got it. It's, oh, okay, we get it. So we'll just fix this and this and this, which is essential. So yeah.
And a lot of what you've talked about today relates to our image of or our lived experience of time through objects, and what we value and what we don't. So things that might lose value over time, things that might increase in value over time, things that increase in emotional value over time. Is that something that you think we do well in the design sector, in the design industry? Are people really conscious of the decisions they're making when they're designing these experiences, or they are a byproduct of accidents?
I think that there's a bigger element that divides kind of the approach of the design that goes into these things, which is the business model. So a product might be designed to last for long, properly or not. There's of course mistakes in any discipline, but the question is, do they want to design it to last for long? Of course, planned obsolescence is very present, especially in digital objects. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's just lack of care. Nobody is thinking at, do we want our product to be autonomous, even if the company fails X years from now, or can people repair it and stuff? And sometimes, most of the times, I find that that's a business decision, and design then follows that. In other cases, I have some objects that were designed with a lot of care and stuff, and but they have faults, or nobody expected anybody to be using them 100 years later. For example, I have some old photographs, family photographs, which are over 150 years old and stuff, and they used egg albumen and stuff to fix kind of the prints, right? This was the late 1800s. I have a photo of my grandfather and my great grandfather, and of course, probably they were not planning to have these photos around 200 years later, because the technology was actually new and moving very quickly, and it has started to fade compared to the original, but it's still around. I wonder how many of our digital photos are going to be retrievable 200 years from now. Probably it's not about the bits being alive or dead. It's probably that the format, I still have some 3.5-inch diskettes and stuff, but I cannot run them anywhere. So I think that design sometimes makes a great job at making things repairable and fixable, and they can last long, or that they can be, you can add your own kind of completion through emotional value if you want. But I find that it's often a decision that doesn't happen at the design table. It happens before that.
Thank you so much for sharing your 3 objects with us today. Where can people find you if they're curious about your upcoming book?
So the easiest way is to find me either on my website, gchicco.com, or on Twitter at gchicco. And or Google me. There's 2 other people with my same name, Gianfranco Chicco, but that are alive. There were a few others in the past. So my website and Twitter are probably the best.
Okay, amazing. Thank you, Jen.
Alex, it was a pleasure.